able to go in terms of what we're trying to do here to maximise the opportunities for the hemp industry going forward?
Well, I've been involved in health communication and since about 1985. So I've got a long history across most of the media outlets in Australia, and particularly around health communication. And as I said, my first encounter with this issue and in trying to destigmatize the use of cannabis as a medicine was back in the mid-90s. I do have doctors in one of the clinics where I'm the clinical director who prescribe, and these are people who quite often are under pain management with specialists. The specialists are prescribing medicinal cannabis. I just think that the stigma is pretty much disappearing, and I think that this CRC should be moving forward without any hesitation or embarrassment about what might have been an attitude in the past, and to confine those attitudes to the past. I think we need to focus on the science. I think we need to focus on the health benefits. I think we need to acknowledge the potential risks for some people, and the importance of maintaining a science-based approach on the medicinal side of things. As far as agriculture and industry is concerned, then I really don't think there's any stigma. I think there's really only opportunity there. And I think that one of the things that we can do is to focus on the importance of balance, the importance of medical prescribing, and the really human aspects of particularly of medicinal cannabis. And I think that there needs to be a very careful media strategy that's put in place, and a proactive and reactive media strategy, so that if there are any questions that are raised, that they are addressed in a very sensible and professional way. And I think that's always the way to overcome these sorts of things.
Thanks, Karen. So,
hi, Dr. Phelps, or Professor Phelps. I used to know you as Dr. Phelps. You were my GP when I lived in Sydney 10 years ago. Adam Benjamin from Standard Botanic. We're a dedicated cannabis nursery. We're licensed in Australia. Given you have significant, access politically, just off Gavin's good point, what are your thoughts in terms of harmonisation between federal and states, particularly where, and the background to my question is, I'm in a very fortunate position. I've been invited to Las Vegas, never been to America before, but invited to speak at the biggest global cannabis conference in November this year. And my pitch is, you guys are hamstrung federally in the US. We have significant legal advantages in Australia, plus very generous R&D tax rebates. But what happens when there's the ODC, obviously, and then you've got states that have you got any thoughts on the harmonisation between medical and then and the point of question is, what if a hemp grower who can at the moment grow the CBD finds that, hang on, I'm coming up against a state licence authority, when really I can grow it, I just am not allowed to sell it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, look, the political and legalistic aspects of this whole area are going to need to be addressed in parallel with all of the other issues around, research and application. And there are so many areas of, particularly of healthcare, that are not harmonised from state to state, and I think it's really important that they are. I mean, just one recent example is dying with dignity, physician-assisted suicide legislation that's had to be dealt with on a state-by-state basis, and with the territories not being able to make their own decisions about that because of the way the Constitution works. So, I mean, there are complexities to this. We saw a major issue back in the early 2000s, for example, with medical indemnity and trying to harmonise all of the states and work out whose responsibilities was what. And this is one of the challenges of the federation, really, is to I think, analyse where things are at and then take a state-by-state approach. The fact that there is a national cabinet in place now trying to deal with COVID, I think there may be a mechanism there. If we work through the Federal Health Department and the various state ministers, make approaches to them, make the case and see whether there is, where the areas of problem lie, and which states, for example, have different THC concentration limits for the crops compared to other states, and then where the legal barriers are, where the cross-state barriers are problems, and it's not going to happen overnight, but I think it's definitely manageable if you can point out the problems and propose solutions that are sensible.
Any other questions from the floor? Tim, you're choking me, mate. I've got to say something. Sorry, Karen, this is Ted.
Dr. Phelps, thank you so much for your leadership in this area. My name is Tim Schmidt and I'm President of the Australian Hemp Council, which is a grower processor representative body for the industry. We're very focused on trying to make the distinction between high THC cannabis, i.e. marijuana, and low THC cannabis, hemp. And we would like to see a world where production and primary processing of hemp products, whatever they are, is unrestricted. And when it comes to medicinal aspects of the crop or plant or the products, and that's where the medical authorities come in with regulations on. We would like to see that all the opportunities presented by the plan to be given to the farmers and the processors to free up and improve the returns in that aspect of the industry.
Well, there's no question that there are challenges here, and the challenges are partly political. And look, I think in terms of the stigma with medicinal cannabis is that is, from my understanding, and I'm pretty close to it, all but disappeared. I think there was a recent survey where people of Australians, where Australians were more likely to approve of people smoking cannabis than smoking tobacco. So I think there's been quite a switch in terms of society's attitudes now. Pain management clinics are routinely saying to patients, well, have you tried medicinal cannabis? When they might have tried other ways of managing pain, and it's just common practice now. And I think if we present any questions like this about medicinal cannabis being common practice and having a strong evidence base, it's used widely in all sorts of areas, including oncology and neurology and other areas. So I think it's going to be an argument that is not difficult to make. And in terms of the politics of it, it's going to just require some legislative review, I think, and for the various state health departments and attorneys general to turn their minds to whether their current legislation remains fit for purpose, or whether it's actually an impediment to an economic development in their state.
Thanks very much, Karen. And I think that the CRC offers the opportunity to move past that fairly.
I really think it does, because it's the people who are working in this CRC are people who are devoted to the science, to the benefits to the economy, to benefits to the health system, and a range of industries. And I really think that it's cutting edge stuff, but I think it's also something that's got a tremendous amount of, it will have a tremendous amount of public support. But as I said, there does need to be a careful public communication strategy around the work of the CRC and what it seeks to achieve. But I do think that the benefits will become very evident, and we have people involved in the CRC who are able to speak for those benefits and address any potential risks. And so I think it's very exciting. I think we need to, not only feel the excitement, but present this as a very exciting prospect.
Thanks very much, Karen. And as I think was said just yesterday, I think hemp's time is now. I think that's what we're really going to try and do with this industry as we move forward, and use and harness the intellectual power and the applications commercialisation opportunity that arise through our industrial partners to actually make this a success in the long term. So I'd like to thank you very much for being available today. I know it's a very busy day for you, and we'll be talking to you soon. Thanks very much, Karen.
Thanks, Karen.
Thank you.
So we'll move on to our next part of the presentation. I haven't seen this bit, so it'll be interesting.
Just there. All right. I'll use the mic too. Good morning, still. My name's Dean Alley, and I'm here to talk about the commercialisation aspect and specifically company creation out of CSIRO. Now, Stu's here with me as well. The way I'm looking at this is my background is actually an investor in new technology. I've come into this CSIRO role to help grow this commercialisation via the venture science model. So in 10 minutes today, I'm going to introduce this venture science model to you and give you some examples. I think there's a great skill here already, and I know that there's some good CIS consulting commercialisation. This may be of interest to you, and we can talk about it more later. And I'm here to help, basically, at this stage. Just quickly backtrack. Wow, I do have an academic background years ago, but I see the critical mass that a CRC can have mixed track records with CRCs in Australia. But I think just meeting the people here today, and the way I see that is through disruption. If you want to get impact sooner, you have to disrupt more. And this venture science model is about doing that faster. So I'll get straight into it. Thanks, Liz. If you can move on to the next slide there. Just to say this is not actually my slide deck, so I'll see how I go. Waiting for what it looks like. Oh yeah, so that's just a quick intro. The idea of this company creation model is, so who's familiar with spin-out models from universities, publicly funded research organisations? You get together with an opportunity, you get an investor on board, hopefully. You might be the researcher, you might be an entrepreneur coming into the university, and you spin out an opportunity, and then you grow it as fast as you can because you've got to keep these investors happy. It's got that element to it, except the venture science model, next slide, please, Liz, requires the industry partner to invest on day one and sign up to the business plan. And it's meant to be market-led. In fact, it has to be market-led. That's the only way it will work. So the idea is that you're addressing that great statement by Steve Blank, which is prove to me that someone has a problem and that problem is real, and you can validate everything about that problem, and we'll build a solution around it. And the proof in that is the validation process. Keep going, please, Liz, and I'll get to the important bit. Let's talk about that. Yeah, keep going, please. All right, so keep going, please. All right, this is it. So it's a bit of a puzzle, as over there, where we bring together industry partner. So this looks good for a CRC model, right? It's got CSIRO there, but just think researchers, any researchers working together, collaborating. An investor, that's where I usually come in, and this entrepreneur person who's the venture builder. So we have a venture builder, a venture scientist, and the difference with the spin-out model is they're coming together at the beginning to invest in quite a large market pool. And it works, and when it works spectacularly. If it doesn't work, it's okay. There's other models. So that's what I'm trying to impress on you. If we can get this to work, next slide, please, Liz. You end up with a customer that's invested in you reaching your outcome within months, possibly 18 months, quite soon. that will then invest in the supply chain requirements to get that product to market. And that's the bit that's missing in the spin out. And so they're the bits that start to come together. You have investment, you have industry bringing in things like help me understand the value chain, help me understand the COGS, what's the pilot plant, what's the manufacturing going to cost, how do we scale this up? And they're conversations that are happening on day one, and the industry partner is then locked into that, along with the research deliverables. And most importantly, there has to be someone willing to give up their days and nights for a year or two to make this work, and that's the founding CEO. Next slide, please, Liz. So I guess, well, I'll go to an example in a minute. And for this to work, it has to be, think of your CRC founding agreements, which I haven't seen, but I assume they've been drafted at this point in time, and some of you are looking at, right? They're fairly complex set of agreements, and contribution, measurement, and activity tracking, and also difficult things happening in the CRC when a later person wants to join, a founding person wants to leave. How do you manage IP? That question came up before. So this model deals with a lot of that up front. If the IP is not clean or can't be compartmentalized in terms of access to IP rights, background IP, improvement IP, who owns the rights to commercialize those? This won't work. If I can have the next slide, please, Liz. And it has to work fast through like a process that takes months, particularly the validation stage through here, building the team, getting the investment in, and raising the money to make it grow fast enough so that you've actually met that market-led demand over 18 months to 2 years. And we do this already in Australia, except we take a lot longer to do it. And this model will work provided the founding parties have got the right set of agreements, communicate well at the start and understand what they have to commit to. And you can have as many binding agreements as you like. It's all about everybody agreeing up front how it's going to work. I think the best way to explain it is to actually talk about a real example. If I can have the next slide, please. So some of the examples that have come out in the last 2 years or so would be V2 Foods, Eat and Brew, Future Feed, Nourish is sort of one. Transpiration was not out yet. Nutri-V. So I'll talk about V2 Food because that's the easiest one, and you probably, or you might have seen V2 Foods.
That all came through main sequence, didn't it?
It did, yes. Yeah.
Bundle that up in main sequence.
Yeah. And it has been helped a lot by having a, how do I describe Main Sequence Ventures, a government-sponsored VC with a different agenda to your average venture capital firm. All right. So the way V2 Foods happened was a group of scientists and some entrepreneur and a person from Hungry Jack's got together and said, hey, there's a huge market need for plant-based meat, and the timing was good. And there was not at that stage any incumbent IP. And over the space of a couple of months, they actually built the burger. And Hungry Jack's sold it. You might remember it was the Rebel, I think it was called the Rebel Whopper. And now that company is now worth $700 million. That's the amount of growth they're looking at. And the reason that's happened is because of the investors have got confidence in that team, that founding team of 4 partners to deliver the outcomes for the market. And of course, a lot of that investment money comes back into both the industry partner to meet the market need and the researching partners, in this case, it was CSIRO and a few universities, to actually develop the contract R&D. So if this is a model of interest to hemp CRC, what I'm willing to do as the person that leads this at CSIRO is to give you the tool bag and to give you the sort of work I'm doing at the moment in CSIRO on a bunch of opportunities and see if it sits for the people in this room and most importantly, your R&D leads and your industry partner leads. So I'll stop there because that's 10 minutes and take questions.
The Future Feed story is a good one too.
Yeah.
That's red seaweed. These are all very novel. And it's great. We play in two of them and it's very effective.
Okay, there we go. Yep.
Can I ask a naive? I think this is one of the best things that is in hindsight, everyone's going to go, that was unbelievable for national and international. I see hemp industrial gas very much like Australia is the cannabis, is the opiate producer out of Tasmania, 2.5% of the world's opiates. We are just naturally going to be good at this, and given this coordinator. But the naive question, and this is because I'm a private, I'm the entrepreneur guy.
Yeah, you're that venture builder person. Yeah.
And I'm a little bit into cars, which means I know different gears, so university gears and private gears, and we know that they work different speeds. And the couple of times I've stuck my head out and looked at university, which is, I'm a core partner, by the way, so I'm saying yes, but I don't want to burn the clutch out, meshing the gears.
That's a good analogy.
So how, like just in layman's terms, because the way you're pitching this is quite commercial. It's these are the objectives, this is what we're going to execute, and this is the agreement. So can we get on with it? Which I love. Is that
all right? So I'm not here to burn out clutches. I drop a project before it even smells. So I think that the faith in the model is that you've got the main sequence ventures driving it very commercially there. And CRO, and I mean, like I said, I used to be a researcher. I've seen CRO really lift in its ability to deliver sprints, scrum type approach to R&D, which, you know, they just couldn't do 2-3 years ago. And they're lifting to that.
Well, they're one of the best research institutions on the planet. 1,000 people.
Yeah.
And they deliver.
They deliver, and it's not without its issues, I should say, but I think the learning here is that once we see the model working, you can see your benchmarks, you can see the points where it's going to fail, and you can pivot or just drop it completely and allow it to incubate for a while. And that, maybe Liz, if you can go back to that flow chart slide about 2 slides earlier, it really is, I see when I'm not allowed to invest anymore for the next 3 years while I work here, but when I think back to some of my earlier investments in medtech and health tech, the ones that worked were the ones where very early on, one of the investors was a customer or someone in the supply chain that was putting money into the opportunity, not just for the 7, 10 times, 20 times return on cash. They were putting money in for a strategic reason for their existing business. And so bringing them in on day one, like someone like yourself, allows you to run through this sprint and validate process with real industry feedback. And it makes the researcher's job, as Dennis was saying earlier, so much easier when that's all done within the framework of who's heard of lean startup and Eric Ries and agile? It's bringing lean agile design thinking, lean startup into research. That's the sort of pace that we're looking for.
Yeah, but it's skin in the game.
Skin in the game,
game. Everyone's motivated to protect their investment.
Yeah.
And the other thing about it, sorry, I will say one more thing about this model is that they fail quick and they fail cheap.
Yeah, fail fast, fail often.
Correct.
Yep.
So, you know, if it doesn't work, you're out. I mean, it's very commercial perspective.
Thank you. Yeah.
Just a quick question. I love this slide, by the way. What if your company is in phase 2 or 3? Would you still be able to work with them and get them to
Yes, yes.
Yes.
Yeah, it's all about aligning that early on. If you're already through here, there's different value add at different points along that, and it's the value chain mapping and understanding which bits get put in first. To sum it up, in the early days, all the risk is really carried by the researchers, and then the investor who's already put the money in has the risk. But then sort of stage 3 is the industry partner has the risk, because they're usually building the pilot plant, scaling it up to the next level, turning it from kilograms to tons, and they're starting to got all the risk. And so they have to sit there for a couple of months and work with that. But if the industry partner is coming in earlier on, they're going to have the risk earlier on as well. The thing is, they're signing up with equity, skin in the game on day one, roughly 20% each. Is the way it's structured.
The big motivator, which are
Oh, yeah.
big motivator. The other thing about Sorrow in this model is that they research as well. I mean, if they don't have the specialist in this, they'll go and get it from another institution and bring it in. It's the best of the best driving this.
We hope so. But look, I'm really excited that you're interested in this model, because as an investor, it's been incredibly frustrating over the last 20 years, seeing opportunities sort of stagger along and then die. And so I'm really excited by this model, and I think we'll do stuff.
Hi there,
Yeah.
I'm Tracy from Medicinal Harvest. Just a quick question. I was just wondering how government agencies like Oz Industry fit into this. Do they have an overlay into part of this model?
Yes. So we've got an answer from an Oz Industry on this. They struggle with investing in CSIRO and university owned things. They said they did, but then when push came to shove, they don't. So they'll invest in this at this phase here, and we're finding accelerating commercialisation is investing earlier than they were a few years ago. And some of the states have various proof of concept funds which can also kick in at that high risk stage.
That's very good. Thank you very much. Why we wanted to bring Dean in is because we're looking at this as one of the opportunities or one of the approaches that we could take to commercialisation coming out of the CRC. CRCs often struggle with that commercialisation aspect of it, and I think that we have to be on the front foot. It won't be the only model we use, and I want to emphasise that, and Dan's pretty sure on that as well, in that this is one of the options that we want to bring to the table as part of what we do as a CRC, as part of your collaboration within that CRC, and I'm speaking to the people online as well. So I just wanted to bring that to you. It was an opportunity for us to start thinking about that right from the start. So we don't think about commercialisation after we've started the CRC. It's got to drive what we do through the CRC. So I see this as being a really important opportunity for us to do that. So
what are the other models that you're referring to?
So some of the other models that I have seen are that individual companies can look up their own commercialisation and do that through the CRC. We have seen, as Dan said, spin-out models. So one of the other CRCs at the moment has a spin-out company that they use as a commercialisation vehicle for that CRC. So we're agnostic about the approaches that we might be able to use. There will be pros and cons with all of them. One of the pros with this is we'd like to bring CSIRO into the fold as well. And I'll be pretty blatant about that. We really do want to have you guys involved in what we're doing. And we think this is the way to do it and an opportunity to do that. And so to bring that world-class, that extra layer over the top that we can dip into when we need to as part of what we're trying to do. Through the Futures program, we're going to be doing some of the stuff, pushing right out on the edge there. Through the health and also through very much the materials and textiles. We're going to be pushing the boundaries on all of those sorts of things out there. So we have to have that pathway to commercialisation.
Yeah, it'll help you bid too if feds of CSIRO in the list.
Absolutely.
The way it is.
Absolutely. There are always 2 to 3 reasons why we do anything. Okay.
Well, I'm new to this, and I didn't realise that CSIRO doesn't usually do CRC.
What do they do?
They do.
Yeah. Oh, they do. They're all over them. All right. So we're going to wrap up and have some lunch.
After more questions on programs now, but we'll go to lunch in about 5 minutes, and that's really quick.
Okay.
Education training.
So
And education training. Do you want to do that?
yeah, you want to flip to the education program. We'll try and catch up with the education training program. So give us about another 5 minutes, and then we'll break for lunch. I know that there were some party pies. Did you leave any, mate? Did you leave any party pies behind? But if you do have any more questions, start to think those through. This afternoon will be more about what are your questions? What do you see it fits? Where are the holes? Are there things that we should be doing that we're not doing? And what are the other opportunities? So
Gavin, can I just ask a question? Just
Yep.
on what you were saying, you talked about supply chain mapping. That's a crucial early component of that. Sorry, some of these sort of foundational activities I haven't heard spoken about, you know, in the larger programs of research. How would you envisage, would it be part of your initiative? Because I see supply chain mapping as absolutely core, regardless of the model we use. So I guess I'm just trying to understand from the CRC perspective, Gavin, is that, you know, some of those sort of foundational activities, where will they event?
So some of these things are going to come very much in the cross-cutting area. So as you know, with the CRC model, there is an opportunity for a company to come in and invest in a particular area. But there's also a cut that's taken off the top, which allows us to fund those cross-cutting areas, which benefit everybody within the CRC, or the majority of shareholders within the CRC. So that'll be the approach that we have to use with that. Okay.
Yeah, well, I'd be keen to do the value chain mapping very well.
We're actually doing it now, so, but that's a separate, yeah, so it's this kind of information that needs to feed in. It's done within a program of which that sits outside of mine. And I think it's key that, you know, we know that, we don't want to repeat, but it's something that we can utilise within the CRC.
Yeah, it's very important front end of this to make sure the discovery is complete.
Yes.
In detail.
Yeah.
You need every factor you can get. You've got to work across the horizontal operational layer, which is the supply chain. You've got to work through the vertical as well.
Yep.
A lot of work to do to make sure that you've got the full picture in Technicolor.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or you're going to trip up.
Yep. So I might just quickly go through the educational program and what we're looking at the moment. Unfortunately, Tech has been was taken ill last night, coming back from overseas. So I just quickly wanted to talk about the education and training program. Education and training is fundamental to what CRCs do, because we have to prepare the workforce and to make sure that the workforce, the education, the extension of what we're doing is available to Australia, because the Australian government is investing in this. So typically there is a graduate research school. So we were going to call it the Hemp Graduate Research School. So that will supply postgraduate scholarships for what we envisage to up to 40 students over the life of the CRC. That's a lot of students. That's a lot of students. However,
Manage that group.
I've got
That's a company on its own.
So we're actually looking at where they're going, where, at what time, etc. They're going to be the engine room of a lot of the research, and they're going to have they have to concentrate on papers, they have to concentrate on theses and all that sort of stuff. But the other important thing now that's happened in the Australian landscape in higher education is that these need to be embedded into industry for the greatest outcome, greatest impact for the university.
Not just the time at CRC, forever.
Forever.
You bowl them in and they're there and they support the industry right through the day, right to the day they retire. You've got to bowl them in and keep them.
That's right. So an example of that is the one based at CRC, got up in the last round. The guy who's heading that up, Mike Stewardson, he's actually a graduate of the CRC program. So it's circularity, not only in the economy, but circularity in students. So it's really important that all of you look at and say, well, what are the opportunities for me and my business to actually have a young PhD student funded out of the CRC to work in my business on my problems? Okay.
You see that split pure and applied,
Oh, absolutely.
which is necessary. I mean, stuff's got to work. but
Absolutely.
You've
It's
got
probably nice to have both within the one,
Correct.
but it doesn't always happen that way.
You've got to do it both.
Yeah, I see that. Second part there is we have hemp training. That's all about undergraduate programs. So what are the undergraduate programs we'd like to have? So talking to Colorado State University just recently, they've got an undergraduate program with a hemp major. Could some of those students come here? Could that be a subject or series of subjects that our students could do? Agriculture degree, horticulture degree in some of the universities. And we've seen this sort of model before with the sheep CRC and the cotton CRC, where they've actually developed those sorts of things.
Exchanging that would seem better.
Absolutely.
You're putting them, you're sending ours to the best of ours into their system, and you get cross-pollination.
Yeah, so when we've been talking to Brock University, we've been talking to Oregon State, we've talked to Colorado State, we've talked to Maryland University, we're going to be talking to Thomas Jefferson. They're the pardon?
He's right.
Oh yeah, we'll get to those. Yeah, I'm just talking North America. So he's like a guinea pig. Keep going. So we have those universities there that we're dealing with at the moment. Most of them are very positive about the opportunities and are even thinking about maybe they could put some of their research funding to it. Cornell is another one that we may actually be looking at through another group in New York. So we have Technion in Israel. They've agreed, they just haven't given us the logo yet. They've agreed to be involved. And we're looking at Europe. We don't want to have a million of them, but we want to pick the good ones.
International reach will also help a bit from the Fed's point of view.
Yep.
Because then you're global.
Yep.
That's a big deal.
Yep. And we're also dealing with the Fiji National University, in that the Fiji government has now said that they need to put money into hemp, and they want to do that sort of thing.
Just a quick one, Gavin. I know because you mentioned it in Canadian universities and saying it's Brock.
That's in Ontario, right down near the Great Lakes.
Whose portfolio does the set? Which minister says, yep, this is?
Yeah, so that's where it fits, but we need to probably work across the whole spectrum. It's not just, so we need to touch, let's with the agriculture minister, science and technology ministers, we need to work on state ministers, we need to work on senators, and I know that there's been some work done in those in Tasmania. We need to build all of those across it, but we need to do it in a structured and strategic way. We don't just go boom, keep firing at them. We're going to get meetings with them, we're going to talk about what we're doing, and we're going to tailor our message to the particular industry minister that we're talking to, because that's what they want to know. And lastly, we have hemp engagement. This is where I think that there's an opportunity to actually talk about what more we could do within this area, especially in relation to field days, demonstrations, short courses, those sorts of things. How do we build the workforce that you're looking for? And how do we build the social capital that we've got through this? Okay, so there's a whole range of things that we could be doing in there. These are areas, these are baskets. We don't have the detail in most of the state. We need to build that in conjunction with our industry partners. Looking at what the platforms are already that are out there. I know that Relief have a platform out there that they've been using for some of their delivery of educational materials. We'd love to be able to leverage on some of that. Let's not reinvent it. Let's look at what we can do to build on those sorts of things. So I'll finish that up there. I won't take any questions because we're going straight to lunch.